What's up, everybody? So today I got another video on SQL, and I learned a lot actually today. Something that might be obvious to other people, but I wasn't really aware of, and kind of caused some issues when I was trying to do some of my some of the examples in my book. So I'm going through my advanced data management course right now, and one of the things when I talked to my instructor, he said to focus on was creating functions in SQL. So I went to my the chapter that was on functions, and I started, trying to create a function, and it wasn't working. Like, none of the examples were working, and it was it was really frustrating. Um, but then um, I just actually finished. I just had a meeting with my instructor and talked to him. And basically, the issue that I was having is, and what I didn't realize, is that there are a bunch of different flavors of SQL. And I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know. I thought SQL was SQL, but it's not. So there's MySQL, and then what I'm using in my what I'm using actually in my school for this is PostgreSQL. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's basically just a different version of SQL. So to create a function in this version of SQL, the syntax is a little bit different versus creating a function in MySQL. But in this video, I'm going to create some very simple functions, both in MySQL Workbench and also inside of this. This is basically a virtual machine that my school set up, and I'll create a function inside of this, which is going to be a PostgreSQL function, so that you can kind of see the two. You'll be able to see that the different syntax. Yeah, so that's about it. So let's go in here and try to create something. I gotta see if, I don't know if the tables are set up here for this. I think it is. Okay, so yeah, they have album and artist. So I think I should be able to create this function in this example. So in Postgres, if you want to create a function, this is going to be kind of what it looks like. This is a little bit more complicated function, but this is the example that I was given, so I'm going to go with that. But basically, it starts out with just create. You can do create or replace. That way, in case the function already exists, you can just replace it. Then you can just write function, and then you can write whatever you want your name for the function to be. I'm going to call mine count rating, and then inside of these parentheses, this is where you're going to want to create, this is where you're going to want to add basically function arguments. So this function is going to take in one argument, and that argument is just going to be the rating level of the artist. So I'm just going to name it rating level, and it's then you got to do the type, which this is going to be a number, so we'll just call it an integer. After that, we can write returns, and then you can basically put in what it's going to return. I'm going to have it return a variable character of 64, like length 64, and then you just type in as, and then dollar signs are going to be your delimiter signs, so kind of like apostrophes or quotes inside of other coding languages, basically just to surround your text. So for the name of this, I'm just going to put in count of albums, because that's technically what it's going to return. So go ahead and do that, and then after that you can write the declare, and then you just type in the name of your function. So you write that in, and then again just the type of your function that your function is going to return. So it's going to be a variable character of 64. Alright, and then after that you can put in begin, and then below this, this is kind of where you get into the fun stuff. This is where you get into setting, what does your function do. My function is going to basically be count of albums, and what is that going to equal? So for me, it's going to equal a count statement, which is kind of like a select statement, but it's basically going to count all the rows of a certain table. And then you can put in basically the parameters that are going to restrict that count. This little star in there just means count everything. You could do count and then just put in certain columns, but for me, I want it to do everything. Whoops. Let's see if I can zoom in here a little bit for you guys. Ooh, this virtual machine is a little touchy. Okay. So then you do count. Count of albums equals count. For me, I'm going to count all the artists inside of my artist table. So I'm going to count everything from artists, and then I'm just going to put this A in here, which is going to be like a temporary kind of name holder for my artist table. So A is going to represent my artist table, and then I'll just put a comma, and I'm also going to count everything from albums, and we'll just put a B for temporary holder for our albums. So I have artists. I'm going to count everything from my artist table and from my albums table, and then we'll do the where, and we're going to do where A dot rating, which rating is one of the columns inside of my artist table, and again I'm using that A as a representation of my artist table. So this A dot basically just means search inside of that table for this column. And then we're going to do, we want all the ratings where it's going to equal what I have my argument up here, which is going to be that rating level that is put in there. So anywhere that so when this function is used, basically I'll put in my argument. So I'll put in 1, 2, 3, whatever I want the rating level of the artist to be, and then it's going to take that and it's going to use it here. So I want it to count everything that has the rating level that I tell it, and also I want it to count everything where the ID of the ones that are counted in my artist table equals the ID of the artist inside of my albums table. So after that, you can do return and then just tell it what you want it to return. You want it to return basically the results of your function that you just created. Alright, and then we can just do end. And for this, it asks us basically to tell it what language you're using. So I can just put my name, and then we're going to tell it that the language is the PostgreSQL. Whoops, I don't think it needs to be capped. Why is that keep doing that? Alright. Okay, so this should be everything I need to create a function that I will be able to basically give a artist rating to, and then it will take account of all the albums that have artist ratings of that I give it. So let's just go ahead and hit play here. It says that my query was returned successfully, so it should work. And then if I go up into my functions table here, my function should now be there, count rating. So just see if it's here. I may need to close out of this and reopen it. Usually you gotta like refresh it. It says that, oh, here it is at the very top, count rating. Here we go. So yeah, so this is my function, the one that I just created. It shows basically the code that created it. So now if I wanted to use that function, I think all I'd have to do is basically just go select count rating. Artist does not exist. Okay, so that function is not going to really work with the tables that they have in here because they didn't set it up right. But you get the idea. That would be how you would that'd be how you use it if you had the right columns. I should have checked the columns before I created it. I assumed because of the names that they had everything, but they're a little different. I didn't create these tables. These were already created probably by other students. But anyway, that's basically how you would create a function inside of PostgreSQL. So now we can go over to MySQL, where I did create a function earlier on. Function name, I actually just named it function name, which is a little weird. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and create a function here that's just going to give us basically two columns. So we can add, column 1 and column 2, and it'll return a result that will have both those columns together. So we're going to create this function by just typing in basically create function, and then we will just do, I'll call it like column combo. Yeah, and then we'll have column 1, which is going to be, I'll just use like a variable character, and we'll just give it like some kind of length. We'll give it 30. You can give it whatever length you want. And then we'll do column 2, which is also going to be a variable character. That's going to be, I'll give it 30 as well. I don't think we'll need anything longer than that. So that's pretty much the first part of it. So that's declaring your function, and then the function arguments that you're going to, give it. After that, you just write in what you want it to return. So it's going to return basically a variable character, because it's just going to add two variable characters together. And we'll give it a variable character of like, I don't know, 90 probably. Well, I'm going to do like 60, but we'll give it a little extra space, like 65. And then after that, we're just going to go ahead and do a return of what we actually want it to do. So we know it's going to return a variable character, but what variable characters are really going to return? So over here we'll do return, and we're going to basically go ahead and say concat, because that's what we want it to do. We want it to concatenate the first column with the second column. So then we'll just do column 1, and then we can give it a little space in between, and then do column 2, and we can end it. So that should create us a nice little function in here that can combine two columns basically anywhere we want. Oh, I think I may have forgot to do deterministic. This it says this function has none of deterministics, no SQL or read SQL data. So I think this deterministic in here should fix that. Yeah, so now it works. I think I needed to reset it. So what was happening basically, well, the reason it didn't work the first time is because I didn't reset it, which means that my function was not actually in here. So now my function is in here. It's showing as column combo. So I should be able to use it now inside of here to do what I was trying to do earlier. So I can do select column combo, and we will do product ID and color, and then we'll just tell it what table we want it to select from, which is going to be our item table. Alright, fingers crossed, this should work. Alright, there we go. And then we have it. So it just basically concatenated the ID and the color. That's pretty much all I got for today. I mean, I still just got into this chapter with functions, so hopefully I'll be able to kind of show you guys some more. But like I said, the functions that I'm learning are a little bit different because they're in that PostgreSQL flavor of SQL, and I'm not as familiar with the MySQL flavor of it. So I'm gonna keep messing around with it a little bit, but for now I'm gonna stick with the Postgres one and try to really memorize that, because I need that to pass this class. But yeah, let me know what you guys think inside of the comments. If you enjoyed this video, you enjoyed learning some of this stuff, please subscribe and like the video, give me a comment. All that stuff helps. I do put out a video at least once a week. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this, and I'll be back next week with some more stuff.